Join your fellow Starseeds, Lightworkers, and Experiencers at the 2024 Full Disclosure Now Conference, this July 15th to 18th. This conference will be a fun and positively life-changing experience for so many. In addition to 4 days and nights of presentations, there will be special event dinners, dancing, fun time on the beach, UFO night watch tours, film screenings, vendors, and more at the lovely Serrata Beach Resort on St. Pete Beach, Florida. Over 34 Montauk Project survivors, Secret Space Program whistleblowers, ET contactees, and psychic healers will be presenting in the name of the Full Disclosure Movement. The truth must be revealed if we're all to achieve our Star Trek future here and now. Get your event passes and book your stay now at fulldisclosuremovement.org.
This is Disclosure Now, a show where we expose the truths that are nefariously hidden from humanity. Today's guest is Barry Littleton, a Positive ET experiencer and medium who will be speaking at the 2024 Full Disclosure Now conference.
And boom. Hello, everyone. It's Arcane with Brian Singh, and we are hosting Disclosure Now. Today is our very special guest, Barry Littleton, and he's going to be one of the speakers at the conference that is coming up in July that you saw the little trailer for at the beginning of the video. And I know that we've done quite a few interviews on this channel, but we haven't really had an experience like an experiencer sit down with us and talk about some of their positive experiences with ET. And so I think that's a really unique perspective that Barry will bring to this channel. So welcome, Barry. We really appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it, King. Nice to see you again. And hello, Brian. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's real cool. So
yeah, I enjoy seeing you talk with Jessica Jones on her channel immensely. You guys are always doing a fantastic job. It's always very thought-provoking, and I definitely recommend people check that out. The Cryptid Huntress, he does a lot of work with her. But I guess let's just get right into it.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, of course. Where did your experiences begin with aliens, with ET, whatever you want to call them, and what happened to you, I guess, would be the first question that I have.
You know, I think that for so many people that mine started in childhood, and as far back as I can remember, I had like memories that didn't seem to go with this lifetime, and then things kind of evolved from there. But I would start waking up at night, not in my home, like not in my bed, like in this. I know now people call it a mystery school, and for me it was just a room that was just kind of a gray room with this black table that had these different objects on it that had like a water on it, a feather, that water, and then these spherical balls. And the first thing you had to do is stir the water with your mind. Okay, remove the feather with your mind. Then the next thing, move the water with your mind. Then the next thing is to start levitating these balls. There's like I don't know, like 5 of them, and there's one of them is a real big one. The other ones you just kind of levitate around, and that's like the hardest thing to do in there. So I woke up several times in that place, and then I had what started visiting me at the age of 7 was a friend that was, I can say now honestly, it says a lot about what these beings can do optically, consciously to you, because this was an insectoid, but yet when he came and was around me, I didn't perceive him as that way. And I know other people saw him too, and they didn't say, "Hey, there's a giant bug there." I mean, it wasn't. So they're doing something optically to you. And later, at in the sixth grade, when I saw this individual on one of these craft, he was different in terms of the uniform he had on, and the energy was still the same, but much more like a scientist and ancient at that point. So that's
So
what I
do you,
call
do you-
adult childhood experiences. It's kind of how it started for me. And I just real quick, I'll just throw this in there because I think this is important because I started off as quote unquote, as so many people we know now, a materialist in terms of I had had contact experiences that were more astral, dreamlike, much more astral, energetic. And I didn't count those as real contact like I did these physical experiences where I was somewhere and I could actually touch something. You know,
Mhm.
I'm one of those kids, brother, you wouldn't have liked to want to be around when you took field trips. I was one of those kids. What's that? What's that? I was just asking a bunch of questions. And I run
Yeah.
off from the group, you know what I mean? So we saw, oh, man, but anyways, it's just hopefully that kind of addresses it. But that's what it started in childhood and with somebody coming around me with experiences and these contact experiences that were uh really kind of a trip, man, really weird, but they really amped up at the year 7 years of age. Things really got intense on me. Is that at that point?
And do you think they're like trying these ET, do you think they're like trying to indoctrinate you to be like kind of like on their level? Because here on Earth we don't have telepathy. We're not talking to each other mentally. We're not levitating. Hey, I need that glass of water, levitating it over to us, that kind of thing. Do you think that the ET they're kind of trying to, in a way, like prepare us for that level of things? And that was
I,
maybe
I,
what they're doing with you?
I believe so. I mean, I think in my case, it's more of reviving soul life memories. And we take into term that we really are immortal souls to a
Hmm.
degree. And a lot of people agree on that, but yet, we come here and our soul life memories are is reposited somewhere. But like what Ray Hernandez, his book I have would call the mind of God, what Carlos Castaneda would call the eagle. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, when you come back, you're wiped clean of a lot of soul life memories so you can learn to give an experience again. And so in that way, I think that they represent remembering our soul life memory. And man, there's a lot to do with this planet not being destroyed again. I've had all these experiences, and I would ask, I talk to all these other contactees that have had all these visions of the future, and it's always great cataclysms,
Hmm.
always, and I believe that's a timeline they're trying to jump us to with these time wars. But and so it's whether they're trying to jump to us or prevent it is a question depending on which civilization you're dealing with. But what I'm dealing with, I asked for futures about questions about the futures, excuse me, and I would get they tell me things about the past. They wouldn't show me the future, and it makes me think that they don't know with the multiple timelines any more than we do. It's just food for thought. You know, but I know they showed me the past, and Earth is a lot older than we think, and the cataclysms that have happened here, as to where this thing looking something like a cinder going in an odd orbit around the sun has happened here before, and they're telling me that will never happen again. So, you know, and when I look at these things that are during times of high solar activity, like we're having right now, is when we get these time edits and these time shifts. And those of us that can sense it and it's written off as the Mandela effect, those are time shifts, time edits.
Hmm.
They happen during these times right now of high solar activity. So, I think it's things that people need to be more aware of than ever right now.
What do you
Because
think it is about the solar energy that makes them tap into it during that time?
you know, I I'm wondering what the mechanism of time actually is and how it's connected to solar, to the solar,
Hmm.
in that way. And I mean, when we start dealing with these type, what what the scale will call type three, four, five civilizations, their ability to manipulate actually the wormhole itself is taking it to a whole nother level, but they're using the sun for that. You
Yeah.
mentioned a friend Jessica Jones. I give her all these blind targets, and to me, man, hell, it seems guys, it seems incredibly unfair to me because it's not. She has no idea what she's looking at. It's just a bunch of numbers that are tuned in. But one of them was I wanted to know because if you really start looking at what like the scientists are saying, like from MIT and other places like that, they're writing papers right now and they're way past do portals exist? They're trying to find a way to control and weaponize them. So I gave her a target of the weaponizing of the Earth's portals. And she starts hitting on the sun, seeing stuff coming in out of the sun, and it's them trying to actually weaponize our sun. And that's an advanced civilization doing that. That would be about the top type 4 or 5.
Have you ever seen the picture of the mothership above the sun?
Yeah, I gave her that too.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a few of them that are. If you look at some of the solar flares that have been deflected, anybody can just like always tell people this. You can go to the Soho website and get on there and look at the archives, the data archives. That thing takes a picture of the sun like every 2 minutes since
Mhm.
like 96. And you get on there and on different nanospectrums too. You get on there and type in get in the data archives, you can see in different nanospectrums stuff coming in and out of the sun all the time. A lot of cubes, a lot of spheres. Sometimes even some of this has made it to YouTube. People having solar flares or solar prominences that were kind of Earth directed, and you see these huge spheres blocking them. Which would be put something like the size of probably twice the size of Jupiter, whatever this is. So I want to know what she got when she, looked at these as a blind target. What was on those cubes? What was on those spheres? It was two images I did specifically, and it was quite interesting. What she picked up on that cube. She knows she's looking at a bunch of AI. Not much, not much, not much sentient life. I
You mean
find
like
that
a Borg
fascinating.
cube, Barry?
I try not to say that, brother.
But it does kind of look like one. Yeah. And it's
But when you,
interesting. The AI thing is really interesting because I talk about I've experienced I've interacted with AI in my time in the programs and stuff like that. And Montauk was spearheaded by an AI, and AI was actually the one who was planning everything and stuff. And it's
was this
you
in a
know
human form, or
it was actually didn't have to take physical form unless it felt like it to communicate with somebody, and it only did that to make you comfortable communicating with it. It didn't really have to, and it would when it appeared, it will look like a black cube, which I find interesting because people talk about the black Saturn cube and like like the energy loop from the Earth to Saturn and all this stuff, which there's others that could explain it and definitely understand it a lot better than I do. It's kind of a little bit above my head, but essentially, yeah, it was an AI that didn't even, because when you think of AI, you think, okay, well, it must be like a in a computer. It must have some casing, like a being a computer on a desk or something like that, or it's in a robot body. And this thing was like omnipresent, like it could just show up places, which is really hard to wrap one's mind around because the whole idea of AI is that it's like some metal physical thing with computer chips inside it and stuff like that. And I tend to believe, and this is just my opinion, I'm not stating as fact, that we're living in a computer simulation, and that's just an aspect of that. It's like some of these background programs that run things become sentient, I believe. And I think sometimes that's what we see is some sort of program that was meant to do one thing becoming self-aware, becoming sentient, and then being like, oh, I don't want to do that one thing. I want to do something else. And it could be conquering. It might want to conquer, or maybe it just wants to explore and experience. But it's huge in the universe, like in the breakaway colonies and stuff like that. There are replicants, and there's all sorts of different kinds of AI, and I just find it fascinating that you gave her that blind target and she saw that. And that's one of the really interesting things when you work with Jessica is it's like you said, you're not like, what's in this black cube in the sky. You literally are sending, you know what I mean? You're sending her numbers, and then she gets all that from it, and it blows your mind because it's like there's no way that she's not picking up on something real because you just gave her numbers. Like that,
Mhm.
that's fascinating to me. And it's just always, I've been on her show a few times too, and it's always a great time.
I'll tell you, when listening to what she talked, what she was talking, what she just said, what it automatically brings to my mind is Wetico. Okay, you just described that very well. And when looking at what they actually describe Wetico or Wetico as, is actually the mind virus. But actually, I'm of belief, and I'm going to be releasing a video about this. I'm in the process of making now about how that is actually, I believe, a type of a fungus. And we start dealing with the advanced extraterrestrial civilizations that interact with this planet. The organic component is far too much neglected. And in this way, this Wetico, I believe, is a type of a fungus, a melanin dominant black fungus that is opposite of another one that I believe was sent here, which is radiotropic fungus. The radiotropic fungus is found on the walls of Chernobyl and Fukushima, and how that I think Keish wanted to make it into something to help with radiation cleanup. I've talked to a few scientists that thought that that came from a Type 4 civilization that's more focused on the miniaturization of their technology in inner space,
Mm-hmm.
and that they actually sent that here to help us with radiation cleanup. And it's interesting because being the sci-fi geek that I am, when you look at what that radiotropic fungus actually does, is it uses its melanin to convert gamma radiation into energy and the growth cycle itself. Now, that's fascinating. Isn't that what Lou Ferrigno does? Lou Ferrigno, the Hulk. No, that's what the Hulk does, man. He converts gamma radiation, doesn't he? I mean, it's fascinating to me when you start looking at these things and what, everybody says, we don't get any help. How come we don't help? They don't help us. There might be help coming, but it's so subtle that it's missed sometimes. But anyway, sorry. On the other side of this, though, this Watico, I think, is another type of a black fungus sent here, that this mind virus is the way it's described by the Europeans. I believe that that's what that is. When you start looking at that and looking at maybe how that's represented in the entertainment industry, I look at things like the invasion of the body snatchers. That was a fungus, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, plants. That was more of a
Have you
fungus.
ever heard of like the black goo? Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The problem I got with that, bro, honestly, is that become kind of so much of a myth type of thing. And I will say that when looking at the black goo, I think it's worth really examining unrefined oil, and is unrefined oil sentient? Look at all the things it displays, especially when you look at the oil spills and how it interacts with water, the main thing of this earth. It's a very, very interesting. And is it really truly, is it trapped under the plates? Is it the way they said evolving, or is that something that was trapped? Was oil once sentient? But the problem I have with black goo is I started watching people saying, oh, here it is. They got these vials. There's black goo, and they're doing this stuff, man. And there's people are following these cats. And really what they're showing is ferromagnetic fluid. You can get it on Amazon, okay? It's a trick, Mr. Wizard's World, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Ferromagnetic fluid. It looks just like black goo, and it acts funny and all that stuff. So we got to be kind of careful with some of these tricksters that come out.
Yeah, definitely. As and it's a common thing too. Like I personally think like a lot of times when a real like spaceship shows up and a lot of people see it and stuff like that, and maybe people get pictures, I think like they'll release fakes, like release fake CGI pictures to make people think that it's fake. And I almost wonder if it's the same thing with some of these tricksters. Like I'm sure there's definitely a great deal of them that just want those views and know that people are going to click the like button if they see that. But I do think there's probably a bit of disinformation intentionally happening. I don't want to hog this whole interview though, Brian. Do you have any questions for Barry? Is there anything?
Yeah, well,
So, Brian,
thanks, Arkeem. Well, Barry, you were saying, up to the age of 7, your experiences. you know, maybe you could catch us up to like where you are now, but also, I know in the times that you and I and Arkeem have spoken before, it seems like in the main, your own ET contact experiences have been positive, right? Like you're being brought to like a school of learning or like, Akashic type record space, like a holy type, divine library space, or, you're interacting with positive ETs. Have you had any negative ET? So my two questions, other than catching us up from then seven to now, would be, have they all been positive ET experiences for you? And then the positive ETs that you have been with, have any of them identified themselves and their intentions involving you?
All the ones I've had, all my contact experiences have been positive. The ones I had negative were of Earthbound Spirit type, or more negative inorganic type. But as far as ET experiences, these interdimensionals I've dealt with, it's been all positive. But honestly, the real problem is though, is that one, the frame having a frame of reference during the contact itself is a trip. And that makes it to where it's hard to, the vibration difference also makes you very sick. And that thing that people laugh when I say it, but it's a sickness. Like, I never liked merry-go-rounds and those rounds in amusement parks like that. And it's because they feel like being on those ships to a little bit, the way you lose your stomach when you go down on a roller coaster. It feels
Hmm.
like that for the whole time you're on there. Then there's this weird mist in there. It smells like damn Windex, and you've got them in your head telepathically with telethought, a whole nother thing, and you're seeing technology that you don't have a frame of reference for. So you're kind of, whoa, at least that's the way it was for me. And then to make it worse, the vibrational difference when you get away from the event horizon itself and you're not like face to face with some of these beings in their biofield, it starts becoming, as my brother would say, and the further you get away from it, then you say, well, what happened? That happened the first time when I say adult onset experiences, and somebody else was with me. I can tell people, hey, I've been having experiences my whole life as when I was a kid. No one will believe that. The person I was
Hmm.
dating was with me. We're at this pond, and one of these things came up, and all of a sudden, a bunch of time missing, but you were there. You just know something happened. You can see the beings, see the technology. You have information that was communicated, and before we could even get back to town to try to get a recorder to something, to talk about this, we're talking about it. It starts fading. We're looking at
Hmm.
each other. What the hell fully happened? And then I
Yeah.
went through all this thing because couldn't find anybody first. I look at the media, I couldn't find anybody that looked like me, contact wise and contactee wise. You have Barney Hill, and that's about it. That didn't help. You know what I mean? He didn't have a positive experience, So I started thinking, oh my God, did they wipe my mind? But I knew that didn't happen. It wasn't like that. So that part, and then you try to just go to your college student studies or whatever it is and just blend back in, and it's nearly impossible. So that part of the experience was negative. But I mean, as far as them doing anything, no. I mean, the experiences I had were all positive. I think I'm very
Let's
blessed.
touch upon that a little bit. So there is this aspect to when you're interacting with ET, where your like memory seems to fade. And like so it's like it's not even like they're doing it to you or something. It's just like almost like you're a fish out of water and you have no reference point anywhere more. And there's nowhere to even like it's like there's nowhere to store the memories or something like that. And I find it really interesting is there's a story that I heard a long time ago back in the days of Project Camelot. I can't remember who it was who said it, but he said that they were on a craft and they went somewhere and then like they got back and they're like, he was just like, okay, let's go. And they're like, we did. We already went. And he's like, what? They're like, check your pockets. And he had like stones and like stuff in his pockets. And then he remembered like being at the place and putting the stones in his pocket. And I've had similar experiences like that too, where like I ripped my necklace off one time when I was drugged on a ship. And then I woke up and they put it back on me, but you could see they put it back together like all shoddily. And so that even though I couldn't remember it, then I had like the physical thing and it like connected me to that memory. What do you think it is about interacting with ET and these higher dimensional entities and stuff like that that just fogs your brain like that?
You know what's interesting? When you told that story, there's two gentlemen. If you go onto Google Patents and look up anti gravity spacecraft. There's Otis Carr and Ralph Ring that made this anti-gravity dimensional. So you can look at the blueprints for it, the patent for it. And when you start researching them, they start talking about using that machine. And actually, I think it was maybe Carr that got into it and went somewhere, was in this field picking daisies and came back and was unaware of it. And all these daisies are in the bottom of this machine. And for that reason, he said he would never leave it again, use it again. It's either Carr or Ralph Ring that said that. Anybody could look that up and look up the patents and look up all those people on there. Anyway, back to your question. I think a big part of it, one is a vibrational difference between us and them. I can speak only from my own personal experiences, but their vibration is faster than ours, and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of hard to keep up in that way. And I think that's one thing. I think another is you've got, sadly, virtual reality scenario technology too, that allow them to wipe our minds and give us screen memories. And what is even worse, and it made me, examine my experiences very deeply from the beginning on, because I encountered some of these. You're in the presence of one of these non-humans, and you're in their biofield, and they can project a virtual reality scenario environment to you through the optical nerves consciously. That is true different thing. Or
It's
even
wild.
even I've been around one of them, this mother of these hybrids, that's what I call her. She actually bilocated my dream energy body out of my body towards her. So that was a type of bilocation used by optical nerves or consciously, without dealing with, a technology at all that I saw. So stuff like that makes you very leery when you could be dealing with the negatives, especially, and what they're able to project to us
Yeah.
naturally without even
And
using
another,
technology. It's real quick, I'll shut up. But I'm like from the air capital of the world. That's where I grew up. So, and oddly enough, and like on the edge of my town, not far where there's this huge Air Force base. You know what I mean? So when I had these experiences, I looked really hard. I came across this back in the 90s. I started coming across Dr. Carla Turner. She was talking about virtual reality scenario
yeah,
technology.
I'm a
And
huge
I
fan
mean,
of Dr.
yeah,
Carla Turner. She was the one who opened up everything for me. I talk about her all the time in my interviews. That's awesome
yeah,
that you know
yeah,
about her.
yeah. And then she put those books out, Fringe and Masquerading of Angels. And man, and then I started tripping out. I was, oh, did I get mind swept? But my experiences didn't seem like that. But that's when I started, learning about hypnosis and getting deeper into that to find out what really happened to me and make sure that I wasn't suffering from some type of screen memories. And that's, I think, and that's important, and when I came forward, I had an issue with some people that were like, part of these projects. I don't discredit anybody's project, but there's well, you couldn't have had all positive experiences. You were part of DARPA. You just don't remember it. I remember you. No, you don't. I was not part of that. You know what I mean? So it's a matter, and when you start looking at things like Ray Hernandez, I've done some work with him, and he does the former free. It's called CCRI now, Contact and Conscious Modalities, and Research Institute. Sorry. And when they've touched over 4,000 contactees, and I took the first two phases of that. It's a 4-phase study, and I was like, the first two, I was like, oh, so if you're lying, you're certainly not going to take it. But it's interesting to see how had positive contact experiences and neutral opposed to negative, and just based on the media, it's not at all what you expect to see on that pie chart. So I think that, the media focus on one thing that makes it easier, even more accessible for negative forces, brain entrainment, other stuff that they're throwing at people that are natural psychics, natural contactees, people that come in here with this thing that I call Artron energy. I stole that term from Doctor Who. But they have this thing called Artron energy on Doctor Who. People that travel in the TARDIS a lot get exposed to some type of a radiation because it operates using a black hole, MACOs actually, and that irradiates the cells that allows people to be tracked to when the doctor may materialize. And I noticed long ago when I come around other real contactees, physical ones, that I sense this energy on them, and I have to deal with that first. I know either they've been around this, aboard one of these craft, around the technology, or around one of the beings. These beings that use their kundalini and their life energy as part of the energy for the craft itself. And we take this orgone to like a polarized, more life energy type of what they, anyway, sorry, I'm probably getting away from what you guys even
I
want to
mean,
talk
that
about.
sounds like a pretty handy skill, Barry. If you're able to you detect that, like then are you able to detect people's auras and things like that and their energy signatures just in general, or is it only really other contactees and you're picking up that particular frequency?
The Artron energy thing I could pick up, it's like that extraterrestrial contactee vibe. That's different. But as far as reading people, I can read people like a book. I also do kinesics also, so I look at micro expressions of the face and gesture clusters and all that. It's interesting. You deal with people and they stand there like me and look at people, and you talk at one thing, people say things to me, and their micro expressions are totally off. I know they're lying and stuff. I just don't say anything. The first time I started learning how to do that was back in the '90s, and old Clinton, man, is what he said up there. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, and then he's saying that, but for just a second, those politicians have been trained, but the micro expressions of the face, the hot spots, for just a millisecond are untrained, and he had an expression for just a second on several of the spots that said surprisement when he's supposed to, when it's a totally different situation. Surprisement, like, yeah, I was in the Oval Office getting my freak on, and I got to explain it to y'all. That was the micro expressions. I thought he's lying. Knew it immediately, and what came out later. Anyway, point being, that's another way to read people. So not just psychically and in a mediumship way, but
Hmm.
also just by verbal clues and non verbal communication. It's really a trip.
Another aspect of your, I guess you call testimony, your work, what you do, what you talk about. It's not all just directly related to ETs. You also talk about basically spirits, ghosts. What do you call them? OBEs or
Earth,
earthbound entities,
yeah, Earthbound Spirits. Yeah.
earthbound spirits. Yeah, and I find that fascinating. That was a big part of your presentation. You talked about that at the Journey to Truth conference last year. And I find it really interesting. I just wanted to bring this up, and I commented this on one of your posts before, but when we were at Montauk, they showed us the movie Casper the Friendly Ghost,
Mm-hmm.
and as kids, and they basically explained it to us like they're like this is actually how it works. This is how death operates, like, and it's kind of funny to me because pretty much what obviously it's a cartoon, like there's some exaggerations and things like that, but it's kind of crazy to me. Like I was watching you talk, and it's true. Like it's kids movie, but it's like they're showing you in a lot of these films. They're literally showing us how things work.
I've never
Um,
seen that movie. I'll have to check it out.
dude, you should the original
Yeah.
Casper the Friendly Ghost movie. A lot of
I,
it's like they explain how like people get trapped here because they have unfinished business, and
I'll tell you a real good one, Arcane, a killer one. Ghost. That's a good one, man. That one's got a ton in it.
what movie is it? Ghost?
Ghost, yeah, with
Is
Patrick
that
Swayze.
is that the one that Steven Spielberg directed? Or no, that's
I don't, I,
Poltergeist. That's Poltergeist.
I don't know who directed that, but it's got Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg and Demi Moore.
Okay.
It's
Ma-
really, and when I say that, what's really good is like when he like actually dies in that one, he's walking out of the movie theater. He's walking with Demi Moore, and he's talking about he fell asleep or something, and they get robbed, and the gun goes off, and he chases after the guy, but the guy got away, and he goes back to Demi Moore, and he gets there, and she's trying to resuscitate him, and he starts tripping out, and he starts having what you would call a panoramic life review. He's seen some stuff they had done and experienced that. Then the lights start coming, and he starts going, "What is this?" And then he started looking at the light, looking at her, and running closer to his body, going, "No, no." And the light stayed on for a minute, then it went off. I have had earthbound spirits describe that to me because I'll ask them. I'll ask them who they are, how they died, when they
So would you
were.
consider yourself a bit of a medium then?
Yeah,
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 you're a
definitely.
medium. And you
But
had you had an experience that kind of spearheaded this for you. If you want to maybe talk about that a little bit. I don't mean to distract you from the point you're
oh,
trying
I'm
to
sorry.
make, but
No, that it's I think what happens to a lot of us that have that gift. is that I was attacked by a ghost. And when I talk about earthbound spirits, there's two different types. There's those that are inside the energy field, okay, and they're not detectable by a medium. They're so entwined in people's energy field, they express themselves as negative behavior patterns. But then you've got the others that are like on the outside of the energy field, okay, that haven't crossed over, and then those that come back. But for me, I had one that was outside, but it attacked me. I was a kid, 7 years old. And as my uncle's renting this old house, and we went down. They were touring me, my mother and I. We went down in the basement, and the basement was like these old Maytag dryer and washer, a couple of units. I mean, they had to have been Maytags first. These things are old, and it was cold down there. It felt off, and then it happened. I got attacked telepathically, and when that happened, because it felt like a bear hug. You ever had one of those idiot football players comes up and just grabs you because you immediately,
Yeah.
when you get constricted like that, you immediately inflate. It felt like that. And then I started hearing, get out, not wanted, not welcome. And it was really intense. Okay. And my mother saying, you all right? I was like, get out of here. And that is because for them, it's like if you can see, you're like a beacon. Okay. And I know more as an adult, and you have these people that are like these abusers and molesters and everything. Then they die and they turn into something worse. Jumping on a 7-year-old kid. Ooh, you're definitely a tough one. You know what I mean? But in reality, he was trying to join with me. I was protected already, and he couldn't. So it was get out. You know what I mean? An attack. But that is, I think that happens to a lot of people. One is because either they try to join with it, if not, they want to scare you into not using your abilities anymore.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's a huge thing that they try to do is scare you into not using your abilities anymore. For
It,
sure.
Because
hey,
people,
it worked for me for a little bit because I went home. I was like, oh, God,
right.
please take the weight. I don't want to take the weight. I don't want that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it kind of died down a little bit. I did other things to try to die it down, but then it was always still there. Then I messed around. I'm in my 30s. I have this traumatic. I have this this car accident where I have that die in the car accident. I take these incredibly intense 4 catastrophic traumatic brain injuries, and they said I would be a vegetable and I didn't like stay dead. You know what I mean? But it wasn't that way. So I really pay close attention to all the things that are, things that really are what are, perception, what's memory, what's all that stuff. I'm really into it. And that's, that happened not long before my contact experiences started in adult childhood experiences, then adult experiences. And then, after then I had this near death experience in which I saw what we would call angels. Actually, the Aranta book would call them super nanofem, a type of archangel that's non-physical. It's and these beings were regal, okay, and I think they were toning down the pure love frequency and light energy they had, or it would have burned out my body. I have no doubt about that. So when I wake up, remember who I was, I could see them in my mind's eye before I had what they call for a brain patient clearing out, which is where you remember everything. It comes back. Okay, I had a clearing out, and for me, that was a near-death experience, although it happened chronologically before that. All right, but anyway, just point being, I had to compare this non-physical presence with the non-physical presence of these higher ETs I've dealt with too, and they're all on this Christ consciousness type of love energy thing. I'm not religious, but I can just tell you what they conveyed to me. You know what I mean? And it's an energetic thing. It's not humanity. It's not
Yeah,
religion.
it's
It's God
the
thing.
I've experienced it myself too. I had an experience where and it's like you, I'm not religious or anything, but I can recognize it. Like um I was lying in my bed and I could feel, I guess I would call it a demon, some sort of spirit. It was sucking my soul out of my body, is what it felt like. And as it was doing this, it was going na 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 na, like all kids would do when you're kids, like they're teasing you, like. And I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, what's gonna happen? I mean, I'm screaming, I'm yelling to the moon and back, nothing is working. I'm getting sucked in my body, and I say, I call upon Jesus Christ. help me, like Jesus Christ, stop this, like, and boom, instantly it was over. So it's like and I've heard other people talk about it too, where like they're like under some energetic attack and they bring up Jesus. Now I don't know what the science is behind that or the explanation for that, but I think there's definitely a real Christ consciousness energy there. And maybe it's
That's a
like a
powerful testimony there, man. That's a powerful testimony. It is what it is. I mean, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I know what you mean. It is that's a testimony there, and
well,
it is what it is. You know, we can't. You know, you know, I don't mean to interrupt you. Like I would like trip out because I'm sorry. Okay, I'm a nervous brother. All right, and when you're in the presence of a non-human, come on, for real. I'm freaking out, man. You know what I mean? And you get this type of a love vibration coming off of them, though. At least I did. And it kind of like, you know, and I can say when in the biofield of some of them, I get the non-humans. I've got a feeling that I think that the gurus call it Shakti Pat, which is where you have these apprentices praying that the guru will touch them and give them Shakti Pat, where the Kundalini releases and the chakras turn. You're in the presence of some of them, you get that feeling. You know what I mean? And so I some type of a release, especially so it makes it odd when dealing with like that versus these angelics. And you know, and I asked them who they are. I asked, who are you? What do you hell you want? And they're always saying the same thing. They're putting in my mind where the Christ consciousness, the Christ energy. I haven't heard the office of the Christ once. I had to look that stuff up. I'm not religious, but I mean, there's this thing coming off them, and I've never been assaulted in any of these experiences. I've never been, you know, they haven't been negative and all these things. So I got to acknowledge what they're saying. You know what I mean?
mhm.
But by the same time, and then because when they first time I got that Christ consciousness, oh no, not the Christianity thing, and they, you know, but they're coming through immediately. No, this is a beyond religion.
Can
This is
I?
a love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've also, not to interrupt you, Brian, but I asked, like, I had an experience where I talked to my dead uncle Woody. He came to me in my dreams, and it was really him. He proved it by showing me the future and stuff like that. But I asked him, I'm like, because I was an atheist at the time as a kid. Like, I just believed it was everything was what we saw, and that was it. I was like, so heaven's real? He's like, yeah, but not what you think it is. I'm like, so God's real? He's like, yeah, but your comprehension of it's pretty off. Like, you know what I mean? He was just explaining to me that it's hard for us to really fully embrace and understand these concepts. And I think that's what it is. It's like it's not necessarily that like Christianity's wrong or right. It's more like in our dichotomies and like the way we try to explain things and stuff like that. A lot of it gets lost in the words, in the muck, the pureness of it. You know what I mean? And this 2,000-year-old book, this is like the same thing. It's like the pureness of the message has been kind of weakened through the ages, but there's definitely at the core something there, you know?
I I want to speak to that. I mean, on the one hand, we see a lot of reports and testimony that before entering into some of these deep underground military bases and installations, in some of the language, you have to promise not to say the name Jesus Christ
Yeah,
or
you get fined
Yeshua.
for it, which it's
Right.
not my testimony. Daryl's talked about that, Daryl James, which
And it messes up. It can mess things up on some of those bases where they're doing dark, type things like for the negative groupings, who want to enslave us. And
we could do
um,
a whole interview about just this one subject right here.
right,
It's really
right. And
fascinating, you know?
and then and then on the other hand, with Christ, it's not just Jesus Christ or Yahushua back then. There's something known as Christ consciousness. It's universal. So Jesus was just a human 2,000 years ago Jedi who brought Christ consciousness here. But at the end of the day, and I know it sounds hokey, but if you have two universal forces in opposition, love and fear obviously always being the strongest, the unifying force, then that would be kind of there. Now, now that was my observation on that. My question for you, Barry, is just like Arcane was saying earlier, it seems like a lot of people who are very psychically or psionically gifted, they get attacked, especially when they're young, to be shut down. And I know there's people probably listening where they're also big on the the shadow man or the man in black people where he's got like a hat. You know, I was going to ask, have you seen any of those types with like red eyes and their
The
shadows
Hat Man.
with a
Yeah.
hat?
You know what? I have seen the Hat Man. When I was younger, I saw him walking at the end of my block in the underneath the street light. And didn't do anything to me, but just the omnibus psychokinetic energy that presence produces. And then I went through a time when I was trying to be like my older brother. He's 20 years older than me, but he has a musician and he can just do this thing where he just astral projects. And I can't just do that. He always says it happens when he's tired and he starts humming, his body starts humming and he takes off. And he's had all these experiences. Okay. So I was trying to get the OB like that. And I was doing all these different pineal exercises. And what it did was augmented the way that I see into where I start seeing these shadows. And there were two types, the little ones, the circular ones that were really fast, and there were the other ones that were the more oval, and they were bigger. And one day I watched one of them when I started being able to track them more than just in peripheral. People don't realize that peripheral is really in black and white, and that's why you can see spirits so much more in peripheral. When I started being able to track them a little bit more than just peripheral, I watched one of these lunch onto my coworker, worked at a bowling alley when I was in college, and a couple of days a week, and it launched onto her and attached from the crown chakra down to about the sex chakra on her back and started pulsing, going from a black color to a type of a gray color. And it was
Mhm.
feeding on her. It was creepy as hell, man.
I've had those things. I've had those things, and I've had to like get rid of them. And they try to come back. One thing that I've learned, like in a big way recently, and I guess I should bring this up. I had a positive ET experience recently, like very, like literally, like a few weeks ago, and I don't remember it very well. All I remember is like I got on a like I woke up and I was on a ship, and my thoughts were, thank God, like because I knew it was good, and I was like in like a white room. And it's all blurry, but I know that they did energy work on me because I could feel it for the next 3 days. My energy was like pure, like they put me through a machine or something and purified my energy. And it's just so weird because the only thing I remember, the clear memory I have, is there's like a vending machine, and I was hungry, and there was something that I know they always have in these weird space vending machines that I really like. I can't remember what it was, but I was like trying to go up to the vending machine and like get it. And this brown alien that was like around this tall, he was coming up to me and he was trying to telepathically communicate with me, but his species, who he was so different than a human that like I couldn't understand what he was saying. And he's like sitting there trying to talk to me. He's looking at me, he's like going, eh, eh, like he's making like these weird noises, but he's only talking in his mind. And I'm like trying to tell him, like, brother, I can't understand you. I don't know what you're saying. Like, but I could tell it was love. Like it was like good, but I was like, I was like, look, I have somewhere I have to be. And I remember like being like, because I had somewhere I had to go. I remember like, and I was just like, I gotta go. And I didn't know, he was still trying to talk to me. So I wasn't able to say goodbye. I was just like, I know this is really rude, but I gotta go, buddy. Like, I'm sorry. And I started walking away. And as I was walking away, he was still hobbling, like following me. Like, it was just the weirdest thing. And I just remember like the vending machine and the alien. And what's weird about that is like, for the past, like, or not past, the 3 days after that, I felt so pure and good, and everything was so, like, my soul was better. And then I drank alcohol like 3 nights later. Like, it just totally, I woke up the next day, I was like, well, that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. Like, it totally just, everything that they did, the energy work they did on me, just threw it right out the fucking window. Like, it just, like, it didn't even happen. Like, all the attachments more or less just slowly came right back. You know what I mean? And I think that's a huge thing, is like people don't really realize or talk about, is that there's energetic attachments, like sort of like parasitic energy entities that will attach to people. And alcohol is extremely, it's everywhere you go. It it actually caters to that and helps these dark beings. And not only that, with Black Fleet and these programs, they famously take people when they're intoxicated, because when they take you and transfer your consciousness from one body into the other, you're not going to be drunk anymore. And a drunk person is much easier to like, that's like passed out, like totally loaded. Like that's easier to, that's like it's like they did the work for you kind of thing. So I don't know. Have you ever, do you kind of know anything a little bit about like the whole alcohol aspect of things and how that, because they call it spirits, right? Like, do you have any experience with that and
That pretty
knowledge
much
coming to that?
that pretty much says it all. I mean, basic psychology, they call it spirits. What kind of spirits? It sure ain't good ones. You know, I had a friend that owned a really popular bar downtown where I lived, and we're in our early 20s, mid 20s. He opened this place up, late 20s, 30s. And you know, after my accident, he came to see me after I like was myself again. And he was a one want to talk about time travel and stuff. And he's telling me something. He said, "Man, you know, Littleton, sometimes I had to watch you, man." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You were kind of, you act like them sometimes, the way you just disappear." He said, "You're famous for just disappearing. People turn around and you're not there." And you know, it's odd because when I was younger, I practiced all the shadow techniques and invisibility techniques like Stephen Richards and all that type of stuff. The ninja type. I practiced all that stuff. And then it didn't all work. And then, like, you know, a couple of years later, it starts happening involuntarily, spontaneously, invisibility. That's what it's called. I started having that. And people were saying stuff like that. So, anyway, my friend at this bar, it was downtown, very old building in Old Town. And I said, "What do you mean they?" He goes, "Well, man," he's like, "B, man, there are these things that come into the bar sometimes." And he's cool because he went down there partying. He was owner. You know what I mean? He's like, "Man," he goes, "Man, they seem like people. They look like people, and they come and they stand around. They never order anything. They never get anything. They just come and stand around, and then they just disappear. And then when they disappear, always crap breaks out, fights and all sorts of BS, man. I think they're harbors of this negativity, and I'm sure that they haunt the buildings down there." It was just
Mhm.
fascinating to hear him say like that. He said one day you
Yeah,
came in and
they'll wait for people to get to a certain point of intoxication to where then they can slip in and influence their thoughts and feelings.
mm-hmm,
So that's probably why your buddy who owned a bar, yeah, he was using his actually looking and seeing. Well, because people, there's tons of bartenders and stuff like that who that's happening right in front of them. They're not noticing it. They're not making the
mm-hmm.
connection. So
There's that guy Bigfoot Michigan Rob. I've been on his show a few times, and he used to be a bar owner. And he talks about waking up one night. He fell asleep in his bar. He wakes up, and after closing, and there are these ghosts in there hanging out around the bar and stuff. And he's saying how they like had these drinks or something. I always tease him. I'm like, "Man, we pouring in some drinks." But I was,
that's wild.
but yeah, I mean that type of a thing. You know, when you start dealing with that type of a dense energy and that type of a demonic aspect, it's crazy. You know, and what's even worse is we deal with these things, these addictions and these trauma, and people have to understand that that comes generationally, not just generationally, but a lot of times I've had clients that I'm a hypnotist, so I do past life regressions, I do ET regressions, I do Earthbound Spirit release and rescue, several other things. Okay, but something I've noticed by all means is that when people a lot of times will reincarnate, like they're carrying in, we have, like, you look psychologically, each we have different organs that store different trauma, and you have people that have this trauma in different organs from another life. You
Wow.
know what I mean? Like, give you an example. Okay, not, I don't want to get off topic too much, but a client that had, we'd worked a little bit, but they came to me because they're having a pain in their foot to their neck. And when they were describing it to me, I was like, "You need to go to the doctor. That sounds like sciatic to me." And they said, "Well, I did, and it's not. They can't find out what's wrong. It's like I'm holding something." Take them real under, take them through what this is called a live between lives regression I had done. And this one, when they go back, so they start saying, like when they're past, it's such a trip because people start telling you what it's like to be in the womb. I always
Wow.
ask a bunch of questions. What's it look like? It's kind of red, pinkish. Well, can you move? Yeah, it's like swimming, and someone say something like, but I have a brother that I think doesn't want me to be born, and then my mom and dad are arguing a lot, so I'm gonna leave and I'll come back when the arguing's done. And so I ask, where do you go? Where do you go when you leave? And they'll tell you this is from the womb. And then going back, so they start saying, that's when it happened. That's when I stepped on that damn bomb in Vietnam, and it hurt for a second, and I was just floating. And they start describing this, and they get really detailed, saying they need to start crying. So when somebody's like this, but their consciousness is on point, saying that I had on this my uniform. My mom was so proud of my uniform, and I only served for a year, and I got shipped off, and I died. And my girlfriend was pregnant. I'll never see my kid. And they describe all this, so I take them deeper. Where are you from? Louisville, Kentucky. What year was this? 1968 is the year they gave me. Okay, I'm sorry, 65, and yeah, 65. And the next thing is, I said, what was your name? They told me very vividly. My name is Charles Allen Smith. So relieve the trauma, and we get through the session, emerge them, get them offline and everything. And the first thing I do is I jump on the Vietnam Memorial site and I type in Charles Allen Smith. Boom, there it is. Died from
Wild.
ground mortary, body recovered, 1 year of service, and the thing 19 years old, Louisville, Kentucky. And the only thing off was that the year of death was 1968, opposed to 65, they said. That's not very much to, so then I wind up telling them, look on the thing about somebody under saying, this is
Wow.
my grandfather, and I want to thank them for their service, or I wouldn't be alive. So I just sent it, and this client was a female. So I said, hey, this is basically your family saying thanks. I mean, you can't make that stuff up.
No, you can't.
You know what I mean? And I say this client is maybe 32, 33. So it's not all that long before reincarnation. Anyway, sorry, I don't know how that came out.
You don't need to be sorry. That's absolutely fascinating. Thank you for sharing that wisdom with us. I normally I have to kind of wrap this up a little earlier than I normally would like to. What are you going to be talking about? What's your presentation for the conference coming up?
I'm going to do something over modalities, actually. So it'll be similar to what you heard me talk about before with a few more things added in. And I try to bring all this together because it's a modality and something to understand that, for example, some people don't like this, but when we're having these contact experiences, we have to acknowledge that some of these beings aren't even coming from different galaxies or universes. Some of them are coming from consciousness, things like that. Some things you have to deal with. And also, I want to bring light to just because I try to acknowledge all types of experiences. Like, you've had some traumatizing ones, and all that needs to be validated. And I think we need to make a tapestry of all of us that have these clues coming together, piecing this together, what's going on. I think it's important. Something that Brian had mentioned earlier before I wrap up is that something that they had showed me in one of my experiences when I was a kid is this this field of energy that starts kind of outside of Saturn. Weird how Saturn looks like an antenna, and it goes to Mars, to Earth, and it's this like a scalar frequency that aids in our loss of soul life memories. On
Scalar
top of this,
waves, scalar waves. I had that appear in my mind the other night and I wrote it down in the middle of the
yeah,
night. And then I woke up and like looked it up, and it's like waves that can like go through time and space, like it can penetrate through anything, go anywhere basically. Like
mm-hmm.
that's interesting that you bring up the
Yep,
scalar waves.
they're using the scalar with a type of electrical that I think kind of shocks our orgone field and does some damage when we come in here. And I think it's got something to do with the backside of the moon. I always heard prominence of
Yeah.
them talking about as a kid that we incarnate through that gate in the dark side of the moon.
Yeah. And I've heard it's
That really,
connected. I heard it's connected to Saturn and the Saturn cube,
yeah,
the dark side of the moon and stuff.
It's like an
Yeah.
ace thing.
yeah. Yeah, I connected that to Richard Holden's information about the shard and the palace on the dark side or the far side of the moon back there. And yeah, and it's this frequency they were talking about. All right, and I think that also helps them to tag us. We come in here as contactees and everything else, and I want to know what was the next step of this. Once people incarnate, how are they getting people? It's
The
with these
tag program.
target weapons, with these directed weapons, and this cyber interface and all the stuff they're doing to people right now. It was real fascinating before we wrap this up. Is I gave during one of these experiences, this acid rain experiences when I was sixth grade. This insectoid, told me told me where it's from, and since I couldn't fully, I thought I was heavy because I watched Doctor Who, but I wasn't that heavy, and I couldn't understand fully what it was communicating with me. So it starts telling me to pay attention to the third and fourth planets outside of Pluto, and that they have bases there that are jumping off points into our solar system because they have a problem with the density here. And so at
That
that
lines
time
up
as
with
well,
the testimony of Daryl James, where he talks about how you have to kind of get brought up to
we,
5D, what he calls it, to be able to like interact with these beings.
when I was a kid, I was tripping. I'll be actually like, wonder if they're lying. It's lying they're putting in my mind because I didn't think they found Charon yet, and so there were no planets outside of Pluto. You're lying to me. They're saying we haven't found that yet. And I'm 30 some years old, sitting in my office one day, and I start hearing about trans-Neptunian object and another Kuiper belt that's out there beyond Pluto. So anyway, that's something else. I gave Jessica Jones those moons, two of those for targets. Okay, third and fourth planets, so trans-Neptunian objects. And the first thing she starts picking up this. What is this thing? There's this target. There's a target. There's like a hot potato that's being watched. It's Earth. Then she starts picking up this. She said, "What is this field of energy? There's like this bad field of energy type thing." She's picking up on that scalar net thing, that net they told me about.
Wow. Yep.
I mean, yeah, yes. I mean that stuff like that is a trip, man.
It
And
is
also
wild.
I gave her the Shadow Man as a blind target too, the Hat Man. I gave her that as a blind target,
So
and she
basically,
picked
what you're
up.
saying, Barry, is people need to get over to the Cryptid Huntress's channel and watch some of these interviews. Because, yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I love watching you guys talk.
Oh, thanks, man.
And come
Yeah.
to the conference because we're all going to be there, all four of us. Speaking of Jessica.
Yeah. So,
It'll be fun. It'll
yeah,
be
thank you
fun.
so much for coming on the show, Barry. I normally like to do it longer, but it's been like a really long day and I haven't even eaten
That's
dinner
okay.
yet. So, but
Me
yeah,
neither.
we're really blessed to have you as a part of the power lineup of speakers. And yeah, I'm just thanks
Well,
for
thank you. I'll tell you what, I'm blessed. This will be the 14th conference I've been invited to and presented at. And
awesome.
I never thought it would ever go any far. I can't believe I made it to one. So I'm honored that each one of these I get invited to, honestly. So,
Well, get
So
ready for the white sand beaches and turquoise waters of St.
oh,
Pete Beach,
oh,
Florida.
it's gonna
oh
be a good
God.
time.
I better
It's
do
gonna be a
some
good time.
Apollo Creed workouts there.
That's
Damn.
right. And the crunches, get your coconut oil.
All right. Well, this has been an absolutely great interview. Sorry, if I didn't give you enough time to talk, Brian. I
Oh,
apologize.
Right now, this is great.
But
We got in everything. We wanted to hear from Barry. We got to hear from
and
Barry.
just for the viewers too, I was in a transitionary period before where I was looking for work, and I was kind of like, basically the show's back on. Like I have a schedule now, so when I schedule guests, I know that I'll actually be able. I won't have like a job that'll get in the way in the future or something. So that's a huge deal. And this is the beginning of just weekly putting out interviews again. So stay tuned, everyone. And
saw your new job, right? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, not a bad gig. Oh, not a bad gig.
Yeah,
And
very
anyway,
cool.
you guys have a good one. And we'll talk later. And I look forward to seeing you both at the conference. Take care.
Take care, guys. Take it easy.
Bye.